I wish good things to you who's watching this. I am Alexey, and we're doing our 9th episode of Carcassonne Viewer Games Analysis. We'll be looking at 3 games that y'all guys sent me and learning something about competitive Carcassonne in the process. Today we have 3 different games of different levels. We'll start with an ELO 300-ish level game, then ELO 400, then ELO 500. Interestingly, and it's a very positive thing, that obviously y'all sent me this game like a few weeks before, shortly after the last month's episode of Carcassonne Viewer Games Analysis, and since then you have gained at least 100 rating points each, so that's really cool. So here, in the first game, our protagonist is the player with the screen name Mati Carrizo. Mati Carrizo. We'll be playing the red meeples. I think it's an arena game, if I'm not mistaken. We'll be playing against somebody from Sweden whose screen name is Mate. Well, doesn't matter exactly. No, it does. I think their rating is around 300 or so at the time of this analysis. So let's just dive into this. So you start with the road. Your opponent scores a 4-point city. What else? You continue a road. Yeah, all good. Your opponent actually makes a good move. Like it's a master level move to meeple this 1-point road. And the idea of that move is there are many good things that can happen. First of all, it sort of paralyzes you because let's say if you draw a straight line, you can't really put it over there because you will be connected and you'll lose your road points. But if you don't put it over there, like your opponent can get something like a triple city with a road and then block this square and, you know, do all kinds of other nasty things. Actually, let me just... why is that not working? Okay. I have to smash the F11 much harder in order to get it to work. Yeah, I'll just open the tile counter, but we won't even be needing that much in this game. So actually, I will even do this. And then I will just turn it back on and off. Because the opening principles are not so much about tile counting. They're just about general knowledge. So here, this is, I think, the first mistake of the game. When it's a very common opening thing. In the opening, if you're meepling a city with a city splitter, with any of the... let me just point the tiles anyway. Remaining tiles. Let me just... So with either something like this or something like this, you want to put the other piece in the most restricted spot. And this is to be done so that your opponent does not get easy 4 points. Now, if you were to point this tile the other way, which would have been correct moves, then your opponent would not have the easy 4 points. Of course, you can say, hey, but how do we know that he has this tile in hand? Well, we don't know that, but we know for sure that statistically he's much more likely than you. I think it's about at least 60 to 40, around like 60 to 40 chance to draw the city cap before you draw the city cap, just because it is now his turn. Hi, IMD. If anybody else is in the chat, do let me know. Yeah, you continue your city. All good. Your opponent connects to your road. You continue your city. All good. Your opponent correctly does not let you finish the city, so that's important. They play a good move here. You take 2 points. Natural move so far. Now your opponent starts a city, which I rather like, and they also sort of threatening to invade over here. Or, I don't know, maybe they could also like finish the city with some sort of starting tile, then build around the huge ruin over here and block the square. There are many positive scenarios for them. And now, of course, you meeple the monastery, as you should. It's a 7-point move. They finish their city, which is great. And now comes, I think, another imprecision from you. So, it's good that you start a city next to a monastery, but a better move is to do the same, but 1 tile below over here. And the idea is that you could finish the monastery with another monastery. And there's still 5 monasteries remaining. That's a great chance. And here's the thing. If you were to place it like this, like I'm suggesting, then this spot over here would have been completely unblockable, because there are like still plenty of tiles that have this configuration remaining. It's maybe you're feeling that, okay, you're restricting your tile less, the square less, because you could also finish the monastery with a curve, but actually you don't want to be finishing the monastery with a curve. You want to be using curves over here for these 2 ring roads, for example. So yeah, you want to just finish a monastery with another monastery, really, and you have 4 meeples. Like, you don't really need a meeple back in hand anytime soon. And also, this is actually not that safe. Your opponent can easily draw a straight line, and then imagine if you, and place it like this, right? And then imagine if you draw a monastery, like, where'd you place it instead? You have to go somewhere here for 3 points. So your opponent can easily push you away from a 7-point spot to a 3-point spot. Well, so your opponent instead tries to steal your road. You do get fortunate that you get the monastery, but imagine now with the tiles being reversed, right? So you would have just simply had your monastery in a better spot. Your opponent connects to the roads, drops the farmer. It's a good idea. You decide to drop a farmer yourself. I rather like it, but then we also know that as a result, it's going to be like a big field battle, because look at all these fields. So you will definitely need to put something in this square soon enough to prevent these guys from finishing and dropping the farm. Now, your opponent here now makes a mistake, because you see, they're so married to the idea of getting this road from you that they actually forego something more important. The correct move for your opponent is to go over here and over here, drop a farmer. Simply finish their city, drop a farmer. It's an 8-point move. Also protects the other city, right? Because if you place a tile over here, then it restricts the square, so you can't easily place a tile here to block this guy and so on. But instead he decides to connect to the road, which you should be very happy about. It may feel that, oh, you know, my road is threatened, but this road is worth only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points. Like, and this city is worth 8 points. So it may feel psychologically unpleasant that your road is being stolen, but the points that your opponent are gaining are actually very few. And one more tactical mistake by your opponent: if they were to steal this road from you with this move, it was much better to turn the city cap over here, like pointing upwards, because now what you could do, either with this tile or with later tiles, actually, yeah, that's not a bad move, like to simply score 4 points over here and create a blocking attack on this road. I don't think that you should do it now. You have better priorities. You make a natural move, which I agree with, but I want you to consider another move. I think a very cool move that you could have played here is to go over here, start a new city, and kind of block these 2 guys at the same time. And at the very least, delay the completion of their cities and make sure that they're not able to use this field platform. Your move actually is probably slightly better, because then if you don't do it, you can get blocked. You know, finish a city, drop a farmer. It's a really good move. Now, if they do this, they drop a farmer themselves, they go all out for the field battle, and now you make a great move, like a fantastic move. You go over here for a 9-point field, and you also kind of separate this field as well, so you're making stakes smaller, and then you're making sure that you're going to have the field majority over here, and you don't need to worry about this square ever, right? Because you already have this 9-point field. So your opponent himself will bring you into the field when he completes the square. Your opponent draws the tile, and so far you've been doing great, but here I think you make your first serious strategic error. The 2 moves that, well, actually you can consider a few moves. The most natural one is just to take 3 points. This is what I would do. Because, you know, like, these 3 points, they're not going to stay there forever. Like, quick points are important. Another move is to maybe go here and restrict this meeple. But this is not great because you're bringing your opponent into the field. I'd rather just let your opponent untangle himself. And maybe at some point I'll wait for the fat tile like this to put it over here, restrict both squares, try to block 2 meeples. Or when your opponent finishes this city, then you start blocking that square. So that's... we shouldn't really be touching that. Another option is, let me just make this a little bit smaller. Hi, Afonso, by the way, is to go over here and then to put pressure on this city, sort of to delay the recuperation of this meeple. And now your opponent is in a pickle, because let's say if they use some sort of curve to connect to this field, then you immediately have a blocking platform from this side. Or if they finish the city, then you have a platform to block these 2 meeples. So like they really don't have an easy way to untangle. If you are not interested in either of these things, then you can also simply go here, connect yourself to the field. I mean, it's a decent move. And also this sets up a blocking platform over here that would enable you to cut off this farmer from your opponent. But instead, you play this move, which brings your opponent into the field. It looks possibly natural because you're sort of continuing your monastery, but here are some problems with this. First of all, you just gained 1 point for a monastery, and you gave your opponent at least 9 points. So it's a -8 point move. Second, you're actually not guaranteed to finish this monastery just yet, because with this move you made this square a little bit more vulnerable. And if your opponent gets some sort of fat tile like this, puts it over here, suddenly this square becomes super sensitive. Your opponent can start blocking around, maybe even block from this square as well. So this move helps your opponent a lot, and it barely helps you at all. What you actually want to be doing is to go over here at some point, and you want to be blocking this square. You may want to ask, why would I want to block my 8-point monastery? Well, because your 8-point monastery wins against this 0-point farmer in a mini battle. But, well, against maybe like 3-point farmer or so. But also, your opponent really doesn't have a way into the field without helping you out. So if your opponent decides that he really needs this field, he'll finish this monastery for you. So no need to rush over here. Yeah, and now your opponent just successfully finishes the road. Now we have 2 moves to consider. The move that I would probably play is, well, yeah, over here makes sense for sure, because you want to secure the square, you want to have the field connection. Another move to consider is to place this straight line over here, because your opponent is threatening something. Your opponent is threatening, the greatest threat in Carcassonne is to finish a city and drop a farmer. And that way we make it harder to finish a city. It's not impossible to finish a city, but at the very least we're preventing your opponent from dropping a farmer. You decide that this is more important, and I don't blame you, it makes sense. Your opponent does not draw the tile, and your opponent decides to connect to the field. It's a very interesting move. They're kind of like continuing the city indirectly, and they're equalizing this farmer. It's a bit awkward, but it works. And now here, you have pretty much 1 move only that you can play. Okay, maybe 2 moves. So, again, the greatest threat in Carcassonne. You have to do something about this. One option would be to go here and like start blocking. But given that there are so many tiles remaining, it's not the most powerful move. The best move is to go over here and meeple the city cap, just to share the city, and possibly even drop a farmer yourself on this triangle and loop around through the outside like this. But the main idea is like, you can't let your opponent cash in on cities like this. If you have a platform, you have to connect. And you see, you go over here and take the 4 quick points, but we didn't have time for that, because look, you took 4 quick points, and your opponent now turned a 5-point city into a 12-point city, so they gained 7 points, and they dropped a farmer as well. And actually, the position for you now is very difficult. You do have like 1 field connection platform, but that's about it. You connect to the city, which makes sense, because later you could get a triangle and drop a farmer yourself. Your opponent now overfarms, which is very interesting. Your opponent now decides that it's enough for them to have that this field is enough for victory. But maybe it's a little bit premature. It's certainly a natural move. But look at this. This field has 15 points. They will have 2 meeples invested. You're going to get your 9 points when you complete your monastery. You're going to have 3 meeples versus 1. So maybe you actually have other ways to win this game without this field. It's a bit of wishful thinking. But what else can your opponent do? Probably this farmer actually makes sense. What you gonna do? You are attacking this city, which I think is really nice, because as we can see, there's 6 tiles still that fit into this square, and 5 that finish the city immediately, and the city is actually really big. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's 12 points. It's really a lot and gives you a meeple back. But okay, your opponent takes 3 points for the road, as you should, and you immediately get your city. And you know what, here, it's a tricky situation, right? I would even consider dropping a farmer. Like, dropping a farmer is maybe not ideal, because your opponent has some blocking tiles, such as this one and this one. Yeah, 4 blocking tiles, that's not great. But on the other hand, if you don't drop a farmer, then your opponent can get a curve, go over here, and then win this field against you. And then I don't think you can afford to lose 2 fields. But it's a difficult decision. So, oh, you do drop a farmer. Well done, well done. Wow. I actually forgot about this. Great job, great job. And even though this field is blockable with 4 tiles, as I said, it's a chance that you should be willing to take, because it's just important to have this farmer over here. Okay, your opponent connects to the field, and now meeples the road, which I'm a bit iffy about. Now it's an interesting situation again. What do we play in this position? Probably, I mean, you could start, actually, yeah, you could just start a new city over here. I think that makes sense. Or you could place this tile facing with the city cap here, with the intention of having a small field for yourself, which is worth almost as much as the big field of your opponent. But you control your small field with a +1 majority, right? 2 versus 1. And your opponent controls the big field with a, 1, 2, 3, 4? 4 versus 2, right? So +2 meeple majority. So you're building your field much more efficiently. Let's see what you do. You go here, which makes sense, but I don't think it's just the most efficient way, because you're not using the city cap as a city cap. Still, like, it's an understandable move. But the part that I'm not a huge fan of necessarily is this, because it's very, very easily blockable, and in this position you really, really need meeples. You need meeples badly, because it's just so field heavy. Like, if your opponent has a curve, they can go over here. They can make sure that you have only 1 tile to finish the city. So I don't think it was a good move over here. Your opponent doesn't do that. Instead, they make a huge mistake. They help you finish a monastery. Instead, they should keeping the square intact, and they should be blocking you. Or if they're not blocking you, they should continue. They should help you continue this road like this. Now you have 2 interesting moves. You can either continue your city, which I rather like, or probably what I think works best is to go over here and then complete the idea of kind of separating your fields from your opponents. Yeah, you go for the natural move. You could even consider dropping a farmer there, actually, but you don't, which makes sense. Now your opponent continues his road, but that's like a little bit too late. Then you get a city and you meeple a road even greedily, which actually makes sense. Your opponent takes 3 points, but this actually helps you, because then you will be able to connect to this field in theory in the future, and then your opponent will have the field which is only slightly larger but requires a majority of 2 meeples to control. Now here, the best move for you is hard to find. And this is here where some basic tile counting is needed, right? You don't need to count the tiles precisely. You can do only rough counts. So the question is, how many tiles fit into this square? And the answer is quite a lot. So there's at least 10 triangles. There are 4 of them on the board. But all you can, like, you don't even have to count. You can just see that there are not many triangle cities on the board, which meaning that all the Doritos are still in the pack or in the deck. And the best move for you, by far, is to go over here and block your opponent's road. Because your opponent has 4 tiles that give him a meeple back and finish this road, and you really don't want to let them do this. This move just hurts your opponent too much. But instead, you continue in your city, and this is definitely a tactical mistake for 3 reasons. 1, it is not this move, and it was a necessary blocking move. Like, if you have a move that blocks your opponent meeple with 100% chance completely, yeah, you should play it. You should totally play it in the middle game. It's probably the best move. But another thing is that it makes your city more vulnerable to blocks and attacks. Now you need to finish the city with a city cap, whereas here you would just you just needed to patiently wait for a triangle. And another problem is that it makes this road a little bit more vulnerable, but the main reason is, of course, this one, just because this move was too good. Oh, and on top of that, this move also restricts your opponent's field. So that was a must. Your opponent continues. You, quite fortunately, draw a city cap. So it ended well for you. But just because, first of all, just because you drew the right tile doesn't mean that the move was correct. But also, imagine had you not placed this move over here, this was still a good tile for you. Like you can score 2 points for it here, 2 points for it here. You can still do a bunch of things with it. Your opponent gets a meeple back. Well, they will eventually get a meeple back, which is a big, big problem. You make a big mistake. Because you block yourself. Right, because you're about to connect into the field and you block yourself. I think maybe your logic was you wanted to like eliminate a field connection from here. But first of all, it doesn't really eliminate it because it's kind of still possible. Although it becomes a bit less likely. And second, you were probably thinking where to dump the monastery, but it's an instructive moment. You probably were thinking about this field connection, and then you just forgot about this field connection, while there were still 3 tiles that could have given you, well, a bajillion points. Hi, Self-Evident. Hi, Helge. Yes, quite a complicated field fight indeed, but I love these positions where they're kind of like 2 separated fields. It reminds me a bit of your game 2 against my teammate with a screen name Krishna, where like there was a big field and then a side field that he controlled, and there was this standoff in the middle game where these fields would unite. There was a super, super interesting game. I'm referring to the semifinals of the World Championships. I will definitely review that game at some point. Okay, but you do finish your road. Well, starting a new one is definitely a mistake. First of all, well, yeah, it's only a 2-point move. Like, who are you protecting this road from? Like, you can live without these 2 points. And if you are going to make a loop, or, you know, if you're going to get, like, quick points by finishing this road, then you can just simply finish it later. So, I mean, it's not as a huge mistake, but generally in the middle game, when you don't have too many meeples, you don't want to meeple small features anymore. These type of moves are more for the opening, when there are a lot of tiles still remaining. Okay, your opponent connects to the field. You get to monastery, and now I actually kind of like this move because then you can actually finish this road all like this, and then you maybe don't even need these fields anymore. Your opponent does this. You go here, which I think is a mistake. Because, first of all, your opponent, like, goes over here to add city caps in his field and to block you. That's understandable. But you should simply take 2 points with this move. Like here, for example, trying to block your opponent. The problem with this move is that it blocks the blocking square for you. If you were to draw something like a triangle or a city cap, you would be placing it over here and preventing from your opponent invading the shared field like this. But now you made it harder for you to prevent your opponent to enter the field. So you blocked the square, which you can later use for blocking. If you're not sure, where to use a tile, just take 2 quick points. It's not going to be a mistake. Of course, your opponents. Yeah, now you take 3 quick points, which makes sense. Your opponent connects into the field. Now what you're gonna do, I don't remember. Yeah, oh, okay, you meeple this, but actually, the idea is good, but why spend the meeple? Because it's super easily blockable, right? If your opponent gets some sort of curve, then immediately you don't have, well, your meeple is lost. But I think the main idea is your opponent doesn't have meeples. And we need to remember why we meeple features in the first place. Well, we meeple features that we're completing just because we're claiming points for them. But we're meepling incomplete features just so that we can build them and your opponent cannot take them away from you. So we meeple defensively for the most part. Like, if you think about it, when you start a new city, and you meeple a city with an open city cap, the only reason you meeple this is just so that your opponent doesn't meeple that city cap. But when your opponent doesn't have meeples, then you can just behave like a madman. You can just pre-build stuff without placing a meeple yourself, and it's completely risk-free, because the worst that can happen is that your opponent can draw a curve and complete this road, but your opponent will score 0 points, and also your opponent won't get his meeple back because he needs this curve over here. So generally, just like, don't risk your meeples unless you have to, especially the last one. Now you go over here, which makes sense. A better move was to go over here actually and to try harass your opponent. Your opponent also doesn't know what to do, and now you get your meeple back. So the same thing would have happened, right? You would have scored the 4 points, but completely risk-free. So you didn't have to keep your meeple on that 2-point road over here. Your opponent takes a meeple back. Then you score 6 points. Your opponent should probably meeple this ruin already. Yep, that's good. And now you find an absolute lovely idea to win this. So let's just count the game. Your opponent has managed to play quite successfully on the field. He has the main field for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cities. So that's 27, which puts you at +1 already, only. You have 10 points over here, so that's like +11. But your opponent has a side field for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's so beautiful. He's scoring like twice for these cities. So it puts you at -4. And your opponent has a ruin for 8 points. So it puts you -12. But you find an absolutely lovely idea to win this without any fields. You score 4 points over here. Oh, I think you forgot that you had a meeple, right? All you had to do is just click on this button. Well, or like it was a misclick or something. But it's fine, it's fine. Because the main idea, I really like what you did towards the end. So let's say we forgot to click. So now we are at like -3. Then your opponent did this. Then we're at -5. And then the important part You connect the two fields, and it's a 15-point move from you. So if I counted correctly, you should be at plus 10. That your opponent has a huge field now instead of two small ones, and your opponent has 5 meeples, and you have what? No. Your opponent has 6 field meeples for one field, and you have only 3. So he's controlling this field with a 3 meeple majority, which is like a huge surplus. I'm just curious. Do let me know. I know you're probably not in the chat because, like, it's, I guess, relatively early in Argentina. But how long in advance did you see this idea? So your opponent gets 1 more point, which should put you at plus 9. Okay, then, and then of course this is not necessary, but you make it rather flat. Wait, did I count it wrong? I don't think I counted it wrong. Because obviously this connection is pretty neat, but it doesn't work, right? Because your opponent should go here and block you. It's a nice find to make your opponent make a mistake. So you are gaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You're gaining 10 points more than you should have with opponent's correct play. I don't. Let's see if I counted the point difference correctly. So you should be winning with like plus gazillion. Oh, plus gazillion it is. Yeah, so you see you win plus 14, but even without this connection, you would be winning instead. So I assume this penultimate move, trying to join to the city, was just for kicks. I sometimes do like that in winning positions too. Yeah, so very interesting. So to sum up again, a few opening moves, just to talk about some kind of standard imprecisions that are quite easy to learn. It was city, when we meeple a new city with a city cap, we need to point the unmeepled part of the city cap into the most restricted square. So when we meeple a city using a splitter tile, the other half needs to be restricted so that your opponent can't claim. That's kind of defense. Then second, there's the tactic of finishing your monastery with another monastery, which you could have over here had the advantage of a bit more efficiently. Then the third one, you started out the fields very well, but then when there were very, very big threats, an important part is prioritization. One is don't let your opponent finish medium-sized cities, and second, don't let your opponent finish any city if they're gonna drop a farm with that. So this is a very sensitive threat that you need to react to, and this is more important than just simply the 4 points lying around. Then this farmer was super nice. The idea of kind of separating and having another field for yourself. But then later, you probably blundered with that field tactic. You took away your field connection from yourself. And finally, that was a great recovery, recognizing that there are 2 fields that your opponent is scoring twice. And then eventually you can connect your opponent's field and make them score only once for these cities. Sometimes just simply, if your opponent invested a lot of farmers, it can be very, very hard to fight for the field. So in that case, you can just simply connect all of your opponent's fields and make sure that for each completed city on said field, your opponent scores only once with one big field. And suddenly we realize that this field is not all that powerful, because even though it is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points. Ooh, 27, that's a lot. Actually, that's still a lot, yeah. No, it's still a lot. But because it's a 6 versus 3 meeple advantage, well, it's 9 points for meeple. Like, it's good, but it's not, crazy good. And as a result, you lost the game simply because you had more current points. And the final thing for you to remember is about city building. When you have this type of city, with the triangle hole like this. If there are lots of triangles, it's better to wait for the triangle rather than adding a couple points to a city and making it more vulnerable. And of course, especially if you have a move that blocks your opponent's road or any kind of your opponent meeples in such a way that your opponent will never get a meeple back. So these are the takeaways, but like well played with the field at the end, and congrats on the victory. I don't remember what was the rating of the opponents, but I think you were like around 300 at that time, if I'm not mistaken, and now you are at least 400, which is great. So very good progress. We're now moving on to the next game. The next game, as you see, our protagonist is rated 400. It was sent to us by the viewer with the screen named Stare Pravo. And we're playing against the former Belgian national champion Gina, who's also my viewer, but they are the antagonist. Here, we're playing somebody who's like 150 points higher rated than us, so... But by the way, I just looked at your profile and I know that now you're over 500, so great progress, just in a couple weeks, really. I'll soon need to get a refill for my hot beverages, maybe after this game. Okay. Your opponent starts the game, your opponent is green, you are red, and I can tell you that the best response here... Well, there are two possible responses, but I think the best response is to go here and meeple the road. It looks a bit weird, but the idea is that if your opponent gets a curve, then you're pushing them outwards. They're forced to go here. If your opponent gets a city cap, then they restrict their road, and then here you can either connect to this road like this, or you can even block this road entirely if you get this triple city tile. And you have the same idea, you kind of start a 1 point road, but it's better to start it in such a way, same move, but just annoying your opponent. Your opponent makes a good move, meepling, not meepling, but kind of looping the road into the city. Then you start a new city, your opponent continues his road, and this is where you make your first opening, well, your opening mistakes. It's also completely fine, because I think if you're an experienced player, the opening is the easiest part of a game, because you just know stuff. Because everything that had happened, I'm not even thinking about it. It's just happened before in my games, or like something very, very similar happens before in my game. So in the opening, like in pretty much most situations, there is such a thing as like the correct move. So here would be the principle. There are two city caps, one that helps your opponent and one that doesn't. And the correct move here is to meeple this city cap. It also makes it so that it pre-builds your 4-point road. So, to loop around like this, that's kind of the dream tile. But instead, you place it in such a way that helps your opponent. Now, normally, this would be a decent move, because it gives you net plus 3 points. You get 4 points, and you lose 1 point from your opponent's road. But the problem is, this would have been correct move had there not been that other city cap. And the thing, of course, that I think you're thinking about is if you meeple the city cap, then you make this meeple slightly more vulnerable, and you make this road slightly more vulnerable in the way. But in the opening, it's not something to really be worried about. And, it's a move that gives you 4 points and a lot of potential to loop your road. But this ends up not mattering because your opponent immediately draws a tile that takes the city cap anyway. So... And if anything, it's better for you to have this tile here rather than here. So this sequence makes you look like a genius, but still, it doesn't change that the other move was a bit better. Here you decide to block a road, which honestly is a decent move, at a 400, at a 500 level even. Probably a 700 rated player wouldn't do that. I think they would just continuing their city, simply because there's still many things that fit into that square, and if you want to continue blocking, the blocking platform is rather restricted, right? And if you want to do this, then it's probably a monastery that goes here. But if you meeple a monastery, well then it's already not that important to block the square because it's one blocked meeple versus one blocked meeple. And there are still many tiles with which your opponent can claim this piece of city. It looks like not a particularly juicy piece of city, but what I've learned really only recently, like in the last couple of months, is that in the opening, there's no such thing as a not juicy piece of city. Because if your opponent draws one off these guys, one of the Doritos with a road, then suddenly this city looks pretty appetizing because, okay, Dorito with a road, because it can become into a lip-shaped city. And if anything, like whenever I see this tile in the opening, I already instantly imagine a 6-tile city like this. 4 triangles and 2 fat ones. I'm using the Latvian terminology here. There's like a beautiful Latvian word, rasnais, which means the fat one. And that's how we call the triple cities. Alrighty. But it's an okay move at like 500 level. Your opponent starts a new city, then you meeple that city, which is very nice. Starting a mini battle that favors you, your opponent finishes a city. You, of course, are continuing your city. They start a new city yourself, which is really good. It's a very good spot because it's quite safe. There are still 4 triangles remaining, and they can easily build something like this. And also they're putting pressure on this city, which is great. You now find the best spot for the monastery. Well done. It also indirectly protects your city. Here, they're continuing their city, but they probably should consider going here and like... Yeah, actually, I think they really should go here and connect to your city. Because then they're also creating the threat of looping around over here and eating up this city piece. And generally, like, they don't want to be letting you to complete an 8-point city next to your monastery. So I think the natural move that Gina played here is actually not the best move. You now continuing your loop, which makes sense. I would have also considered simply meepling this new road and securing the city a little bit. But what you did is also fine. Because, I mean, eventually you do need to secure that loop. Like, otherwise your opponent will score 2 points over here and cut you off. So it's a good move. They're continuing your city. Now you get your stuff. You meeple a new city cap, which is all good. They start a new city over here, which is actually not the best move. I mean, it's fine. But I think at this point, the best move for them is possibly just to meeple this field. Even though it's a valuable tile, it's a really good field, and being the first on it is probably worth the 2 points. Now you go here, which makes sense. It's good. I would have prioritized going here. Like, it's just so juicy. It also protects the city. It pre-finishes your monastery. You can even drop a farmer at the end. But I understand how you want to harass your opponent. It's a good move too. Like, the thing, it is very difficult with prioritization to actually figure out, like, if you have 2 rows that you need to finish, where to go first. So the logic that you go in a way that slightly hurts your opponent certainly makes sense. Like, as long as you have some sort of justification to pick one way into another, I think you're in a good place. So it's a good move. Your opponent gets the evil hamster. You continue your city, which I like. Again, even though it's a juicy tile, there's a case to be made to do something like this and drop a farmer. But this farm will be possible to be attacked later. And with this move, you're also protecting this square indirectly, and you're protecting this city, and you're adding your points. So you're doing what you have to do, if you ask me. They finish their city. and you finish yours. And honestly, here I probably might even consider dropping a farmer. I know it's like it seems a bit early and it's only a 3-point field, but ultimately everything here is everything's gonna merge. So you might as well just give yourself that tempo. But not dropping a farmer there is also fine. Now Gina continues his stuff. Here, yeah, what you're doing makes sense. Start a new city, make your opponents attack you. Then your opponent finds a really good move. They attack your city, indirectly protect their city because it's now much harder to for you to continue the square. And they meeple oh, you have to be kidding me. They played this move without a field meeple, and well, maybe that was a misclick or something, but not meepling the field when you're like 500 rated, the only explanation that I can have, the only justification is a misclick. They had to meeple the field. So you should be very, very happy about how they played. You find a good move. I mean, probably if I were you, instead of this, I might have considered going this first, just to put pressure on this piece. But this makes sense too. This is a good move. They meeple roads, which makes sense. You continue here, which again, still very good. Then they go over here. Okay, now, what could you do? I see this move, this move. Oh, you found the best move, right? Because since they're not going to meeple the field, you meeple the field instead. They meeple the monastery, which is good. You here have a city cap tile, so you can... I think a good move is starting a new city over here, putting some pressure on this square. Or maybe putting this tile over here, kind of protecting this city. But at the same time, it's not that important to protect your city, because then if this square gets blocked, then what happens here is not that important anymore. So actually, at this point, you still want your opponent to possibly connect, and then psych, you block the road instead. So until this square has been secured, it's not, or this square has been secured, it's still not clear whose benefit it is to finish this city. So far, of course, it's yours. Yeah, you start a new city over here, which is simply not the best move, because you're starting a new city, just starting a new city. Much better is to start a new city and put pressure on your opponent. So before you start a new city, think if there's something else that you can do with that move. So I think that's quite a big mistake here. They drop a farmer, which is honestly an okay move, but I don't know. It's a bit of an awkward tile to be doing stuff like this. They should have just meepled the field earlier, and now they do everything they can to bail out. Now you find a good move, you meeple the field yourself, and the idea is that if they finish their monastery, they bring you into the field, and you still have the backdoor chance of this square still staying open. But of course, in all likelihood, it could stay blocked. But this idea, it's very good. What are you gonna do? Not much that you can do. I guess you can start blocking something. Like you can go here, start block your opponent. You can go here, start blocking this square, although this square is like not super important to block. Instead, you go here to protect your stuff, which sort of makes sense. Okay, it's a good move as well, as long as you just don't dump the tile. Your opponent now makes your city more vulnerable, which is not that great for you, but you're now taking 3 points, securing this square, and now you are creating a threat that your opponent needs to deal with. They probably now need to start connecting to the city. Or better, I think a good move for them is to go over here and then to block your city, make sure that you need the same tile in both places. Or probably they should go over here, secure the road, and drop a farmer. Actually, yeah, this is definitely the move for them to play. And they do that. You have to be kidding me. Oh man. I mean, this doesn't matter because it's your opponent rather than you. But I know they've also been watching my channel. How do they not drop a farmer there? Like, how do they not drop? Okay. It's such an obvious farmer. I don't think I need to explain this to most of my viewers. Because look at this, 3 tiles that left here. It's like just clinches the position. Okay, well. Wait. So the move that you just played was a huge mistake. I think that you were simply trying to like pick something to do with this tile, but you made a move that helps your opponent and hurts you. Yeah, because it was you, right? First of all, you are attacking your own square for some reason, because this is your square. You will need this square to finish your city. And second, you're securing your opponent's city because, first of all, you're blocking the blocking square. Like, eventually you want to put a tile over here that would attack your opponent from here. And second, if they draw a tile like this, and if they continue their city, you've secured the square from them because then you can't connect to the city anymore like this. So I think it's something similar to what we saw in the previous game a couple of times. If you see like a useless road tile that you don't know what you can do with, well, then just make sure that, first of all, try to find at least some marginal value from it. You know, like, even with this idea aside, like, you could just go here, you know, block a square from your opponent next to your opponent's monastery. Like, you can prevent them from scoring 3 points with a crossroads, and you can make it harder for them to finish the monastery. And second, just make sure that you're not accidentally hurting yourself, because I've seen this quite a lot, even like by, well, reasonably high-rated players. Yeah, okay, now finally they drop a farmer, which they should have done ages ago, except now this is less valuable because there are only 2 tiles that fit over here as opposed to 3. So, yeah. Okay, you now indirectly continuing your city, except that I also see that you're expanding your field, but a better move was to place the same tile but over here. Because then it's much harder to block your city. And you could draw this, finish it like this, and then draw a triangle and finish it like this. And you would have a nice 10-point city kind of beautifully tucked in. Because if you place this city cap tile over here, then your opponent actually doesn't have any blocking tiles because all the monasteries are out. So I think that would have been pretty cool. Okay, your opponent scores some points and brings you into the field. It's a move that makes sense, I guess. You now decide to secure your city, which makes sense. But maybe I would have gone over here just to try and finish the city. Or, well, over here is probably not that great. But I understand your move too, but what you're saying essentially is that you're giving up on this guy. But that's understandable. Yeah, now your opponent blocks you, and again, this would not have been possible had you placed the city cap from the other side. Now you have a city cap to place, and now you realize the consequence of this move. Because earlier you robbed yourself of a blocking platform, you can't now place this tile over here, and it's something that you would have loved to do to hurt your opponent. So instead, you're forced to do... It's good. Yeah, starting a blocking attack. It's good. Your opponent now gets a meeple back. And your position here is rather difficult. You now sort of kind of prevent a field connection. Your opponent goes here. You immediately go here, which is great. They go here. So far, natural moves. Now you get the splitter. You get a Sophie's choice. Which one do you save? But of course, it's very, very marginal difference. I think the one that you did was fine. They take the 3 points, something that we could have prevented, by the way. Also, You know what's not great now is that they have an outside entrance into this field for going these curves. And they could enter with 2 crossroads, for example, instead of 2 curves. But it's still fine, still not that bad. Now here, there's a move that I think you absolutely must play. You're down some points, but actually you'll be doing fine if you draw this kind of stuff. Actually, you know what? Oh, hi Glavier. We're here going to take some time and count the points. So you're at -15 right now. These monasteries are equal. You have a 1-point city over here. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 9 points for cities. Your opponent has 5 points for roads. So have 4 points. So you're at -11, excluding the fields. For the fields, you have 9, and your opponent has 6. So it's like 3 extra points for you, assuming that the fields don't unite. So you are actually at -8, which is still surmountable in a multitude of ways. You can grow your ruin a little bit. That's like 3-4 points at the very least. You can score some quick points, hope that you draw some quick point tiles that your opponent doesn't draw. Maybe you can win some points for these city caps, for example. That already puts you dead even. You can finish this. This move will bring your city from 8 points to 18 points and give your opponent 2 road points. So this is like a potential tile for an 8-point move. So you have high impact tiles. But all these potential moves, they kind of just tie the game for you. And I think the way you secure this game, and you can even win this game sometimes without finishing your big city, if you win the big field. The move to play here is like absolutely this. Just every day of the week, you drop a farmer, you connect through a straight line, you have 2 meeples with 14 tiles remaining. This is the kind of stuff that you got to be spending your meeples on. This is the best connection spot, and you must do that not only to win the field. There are some scenarios how you win without the field, but you must take this before your opponent takes this spot. And actually, even if somehow this field connection is unsuccessful, it's a lucrative field because even though it's only 3 points, it's 9 points potentially. 3 here, 3 more when this city is being finished, and 3 more when this city is being finished. So it was an absolute must. And it's the best possible tile in the deck, the one possible tile in the deck for you to do so, because by turning this triangle like this, you make sure that your opponent cannot re-enter from here. Let's say if you were to get, I don't know, like some sort of straight line, then your opponent can drop a farmer here, finish the city, re-enter like this. But this would be shouldering your opponent away. So you did something that just was basically dumping the tile, and that was, I think, a hugely importantly missed opportunity. Hi, Vika. We're now looking again at a field fight standoff. Here, you would have gotten the tile to connect to the field, by the way, already. Now you recognize this opportunity and do it here. But the question is, like, why not last move? Why not do that earlier? Because now this is like not the best tile because it needs, like, this is more restricted than this, right? Because and we'll see a subtle difference here. Your opponent tries to block, you finish the city, which is great, and suddenly we're doing not too bad. We're back on the scoreboard. We're only at -1. We're threatening to take away the field. Your opponent's 7-point road will not be enough. Oops, I forgot about this. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to count this 5-point road. So actually your opponent has 12 points for road, which means that we need the big field in order to win. Or at least we need this ruin to grow, like to win narrowly. Your opponent now tries connection to the field, which I'm not even sure they need to do, although it's probably a good move, and it's actually quite tough to block, so I rather like it. Here you connect to the field, as you should, but you lose some value as a result, because you forced yourself in a position where you connect using a 2-point tile. Whereas, and don't get me wrong, this is the correct move in this position, and because your opponent was putting pressure and starting to block. But imagine had you done the thing with the field earlier, you would have connected with a straight line, and then in this move you would have been free to go over here and meeple an insurance road, which does two things. One is make sure that, well, if your opponent connects you into the field, then he shares this lucrative road with you. So you freeload off a bunch of points. And second, you create yourself another blocking platform. Like, you're still happy with blocking all of this because then your opponent doesn't get the field. Your opponent doesn't get a tile. You play now a good move. So the question is, can you win without the field? Can you win if the field is tied? The answer is probably not. Because you're at -1, okay, you have this, so it's 0, and your opponent is leading because of these roads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's just like 11 extra points for your opponent. If you do something like this, it's what? 8 extra points for your opponent. Maybe you can actually narrowly win this. Like, it's doable. Or maybe you can go over here, meeple a ruin, creative. Like, it's definitely not obvious. But I like what you play. I think you kind of, you're going, you know what, there's only one tile remaining that fits there. Might as well go for the 50-50. It's a good gamble, but your opponent gets the tile. And the reason why this was good gamble, because you have a high value for this tile. If you get it, you could actually go here and meeple another 6-point field yourself on the left. So now your position is not great. Your opponent has entered the field and you need to re-enter the field. And let me think. We're at -9, -8, -13. The good news is that the field is probably enough for us. Certainly we can do some quick point move, but it's probably not enough at this point. And you decided, you recognize that there are no straight line, that there are no crossroads remaining, that there are 2 curves remaining, and you go here and drop a farmer. Which I think is fantastic, because the odds of you drawing at least one of 2 curves are 80%, not 75. It's closer to the end, so then the probabilities, they just are a bit higher. With 5 tiles remaining, it's 80% exactly. It's very easy to calculate. Yeah, and the thing is, you'll be getting extra points. You'll be getting, like, not 12, but you'll be getting 16. And in the unlikely event you get both curves, you even get the big field. But of course, the chances of that happening is only 20%. So we shouldn't really be hoping for that too much. Your opponent takes 2 points and create the blocking platform. Here, you really can't do anything about this, and you just need to pray that your opponent doesn't have the starting tile and does not block you. What could you do? I know. No, I don't. No, I don't think there's like any particular move that you can play to improve your position. Oh, I know. Well, no, it's fine, it's fine. Yeah, you go here. Okay, you meeple the field. Yeah, that's cool. I think that's cool. I think that doesn't really... Wait. Let me think about this. Because I just took your opponent's move for granted, right? So you took a 3-point field, and now essentially you're hoping that your opponent gets a curve and then you get a curve, right? So this will give us a 33% chance to win. Yes. Because you win only if your opponent draws the starting tile as the last tile. But let's just count the points again. Okay, 11, 16. You have 3 extra. So that's 13 points. You're down 13 points. Are you really down 13 points? What am I missing? Yeah, apparently that's the case. Oh, 12 points. Because of this thing. Yeah, it appears, unfortunately, that you cannot win anymore. Because if you do get your thing, then you get 12, but your opponent simply just scores something else. Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate, really. Am I missing it? No, I don't think I'm missing anything. Your opponent, of course, decided to play the flashy move. They placed a 0-point farmer, flipping for the same curve as you. And this is how like you can risk losing the game potentially, because had they had fewer, just a couple fewer points, this move would have been game losing. Because, well, if you get the curve now, you place it over here, and you tie the game, and then they'll be able to like meeple a 4-point road or something. But it's just barely so. So yeah, you don't get the tile, you get extra 3 points for the field, but it does not matter because your opponent, just to add insult to injury, wins the top field from you. So it was a 24-point flip at the very end. Yeah, and you see, you lost by 25 points. So had you won the coin flip, you would have like lost by 1 point or something like this. Glovier is asking, isn't just taking the 4-point road better? Do you mean as green? Because even if we get the starting tile, the opponent always blocks the city. Oh, yeah, this. With this move, yes, of course, it's actually better to take a 4-point road. But it is better indeed by 1 point, because like it's it's like 1 extra point. But it would not have mattered for the win probabilities, I think. Because that thing here was actually a 21-point flip. Because I should not have counted this city, because it wasn't there yet at the time of the flip occurred. So first of all, like towards the end, it's very interesting. Like how when it came to the final field fights, I think you could have did the right things. You set up a really good coin flip. This city building was very nice, but there were a few opening imprecisions, and I think like a few speed bumps of being inefficient with your features that cost you the field fight. Because what cost you the field fight were these 2 blocked meeples, and I think you got them blocked by just not building in the most optimal places. Here we talked about the tactical mistake, how you got yourself blocked. Also, this city should have been over here. This city of your opponent should have like never been finished. Yeah, you could have managed to, you protected your city, your opponent's city yourself, but we talked about this. Your opponent made quite a few mistakes as well. You found good farmers eventually, but you just had to be a bit more aggressive. This was good, just needed to happen a little bit earlier. Kind of in these big field fight position, like if the field has a couple of cities, basically if the field has 1 or 2 cities and it looks reasonably close to the main field, and you have 2 meeples or more, you should meeple it. Like, you should just go there right now. So and then of course, having gone for the spot earlier would have enabled you to deal with this threat by green. I mean, green of course got some tiles as well that helped him win this, but it felt like it could have been your game. But you probably know a lot of this stuff by now, because I see your rating has gone up by quite a bit. So seriously, congratulations of that. And in this game, you played some really good moves as well. But it's surprising how the field fight theme is so connected to the city building theme. Because if you're efficient with your recurring points like cities, roads, and stuff, then you get your meeples back sooner or in a more effective manner. And then the field fights turn out better for you as a result. So yeah, it's all connected. And to be honest, to this day, it's not something that I had thought about it, because people are asking how to get better at field fights, and maybe the answer is to get better at meeple management and to build your features in a safer way. Alrighty, hopefully that was instructive. We have one more game to go by an expert play. There'll be like a 500 level game. But before that, I really need some hot beverages, so I'm gonna take a 3-minute break for my voice. Maybe let me put this as well. Okay, so 17:15 UTC, I have to put this, right? Alrighty. Right, see y'all in a small bit. Of course, I always underestimate the length of things. I think the sound should be back, and we're moving on to our next game. Here, our protagonist is the viewer with the screen name IMD5. I think it's an arena game, if I'm not mistaken, but the important part is that at the time you sent me the game, you rated like 500, you're now like 650, so that's a 100 rating point difference, which 150 rating point difference in the last month, which I think is really cool. Yeah, so far natural moves. No, okay. Just yeah, don't play moves like this. It's not a good farmer. Sorry about that. Okay, I just like forgot this game for a while. You know what? Because it's actually really restricted. If your opponent gets a fat piece, then you're stuck with 6 points forever. And I'd rather just meeple the road, like it's a nice and direct road. Because what your opponent gonna do now, they're gonna go here, meeple this road themselves quite happily, and that's it. You're stuck with your 3-point farmer. And if this field should grow big enough to fight for, you will be able to do something about it a bit later. Like it's not a bad move necessarily, but no, it's actually. But here's the thing: like if somebody who's rated like 400 were to play it, I wouldn't blame them. But it's a move, like it's a really 500 level move, in a sense that it's a move that ensures that you stay at 500. So if you're aspiring to like 700 or more, I just don't think it wins you games at a high enough frequency. And that's it. They're doing quite happy. Of course, you can start blocking, but they are the favorite to get their meeples out. Especially now that you draw. Oh, look at this. You draw this. I mean, of course, it's unfortunate for you, but then you help them with the road and you also restrict your own field. And now you will be kind of forced to work around. Because imagine, like, even if you block their stuff successfully, or maybe like this gets blocked together. Then they put a fat piece over here, and you're also stuck with just 3 points. Glovier is saying, roads are very nice features. Yes, I completely agree. Yeah, here they sort of solve their problems. At the expense of a shield, but they're quite happy with this. I mean, it's still opening like a lot of stuff that can happen. They separate themselves, which makes sense. Here, you probably need to secure your city. Not that way, the other way. Because this doesn't make your city any more secure. It's much better to turn it that way because your opponent can easily connect. Moreover, your opponent can easily connect with like bad tiles, such as fat ones or triangles. Whereas if you go here, you still have plenty of tiles that give you an 8-point city, and you're also in case if you don't get here, you're restricting. The field is restricted. I mean, this move is fine. This move is fine. I just think that the other one's better. This move is not. This field is just not big enough to justify a field fight. It will only be big enough if your city is finished, but there's no guarantee that this is going to happen. Like if they get a fat one, this could turn into a ruin. Then you're stuck with a 6-point field again. So when they drop a farmer, you actually should be really, really happy about this because it justifies your own 6-point farmer earlier. But now again, you're investing a meeple into what's currently a 6-point field. It's better to drop a farmer later, like when you actually get a city cap. They do connect to the field, and suddenly your position's not great. You go here, which sort of makes sense, but then again, this square now becomes a bit vulnerable. And you're doing what you had to do, but it was all as a result of a couple of opening imprecisions. You get a tile that gets to connect to the city. Then they get the monastery quite greedily. Then you take the 2 points away, which of course is very good. They continue their city, which is good for them. Probably the best move for you is to go here. Yeah. and then threaten to complete the city, just like threaten the square a lot. But instead you go here. I don't think it's the best move. I don't think it's the best move at all. Like, most of the time you won't be connecting here. And also it pre-builds a nice 5-point road for them. Like, if they get a curve, they just put a curve over here and then they finish a 5-point road next to their monastery. Yeah, it was just much better to go down the bottom. They go here, which you should be very happy about. I think they needed to just bail out and go over here. Simply creating a joint ruin. And then if they put it over here, they still have like a bit of a chance of getting a splitter and separating themselves. Obviously, they can't place this tile over here because then this road becomes vulnerable. But, you know, they'll can do it later. Yeah, they continue their city, which is great for them. Here, I just complete the field connection. And you make a move which is on one sense understandable, but on other, like, against low-rated opponents, I never play moves like this. It gives... It's a 50-50 block. Now, the problem with this move is, depending on who you ask, it's either only 50% or at least, or like 50%, meaning, wow, it's a lot. And here, they have a like super high impact tile. I guess you could say that they'll stay without a meeples for a long time. And that's nice. And you also prolong a field. No, I mean, this move makes sense. This move makes sense. But normally, I don't play these moves unless I really have to. It's tough to suggest an alternative. Maybe just finally complete the field connection, because this square is super vulnerable, and only then do something about this. Because you see, like, they're now going to finish their city. And if they are going to finish the city, then this square becomes vulnerable anyway. Like, you can get some sort of fat tile, for example, put it here, or a regular monastery. You can hurt this meeple in other ways. Actually, they don't get away with both meeples often enough. Well, they do if they get like a straight line and a starting tile. It's an okay move. It's an okay move. I mean, 50% maybe at this point is good enough. Yeah, you build up the city, which is nice, but at the same time, this is vulnerable. This is so vulnerable. They complete the city, they drop a farmer, they don't for some reason. I would. Okay, finally you connect. Yes. Then they have a fat tile, which they should use for some sort of blocking. I guess here or here are the two options, but they can never allow you to finish the city. Yeah, this move makes sense. You can probably just continue building the city. Not like that. Not like that. Ah, okay. Oh, no, actually... maybe I get the idea. So are you saying that, first of all, if you get away with a block, then you suddenly cover this up? Yeah, that could work well for you. But then, here's the thing. I know that, like, this ruin is valuable enough that maybe it's not about completing that city, but there's still an attacking point over here. I probably prefer doing this move first and then trying to sneak in here. Yeah, you know what? No, it's a reasonable move. It's a reasonable move, and I see that if they try to connect here, you can always reconnect or break that connection. So I quite like this gamble actually. And now they're forced to block, but it's fine because they've now spent one more move on not having their meeple freed up over here, and you're threatening to take a city piece and block this meeple forever. You meeple a monastery and also eliminate a field connection with that, which is absolutely great. Now here, the move that your opponent should find is probably go over here and save this meeple, because again, they're one move away from getting blocked completely because all 4 starting tiles have been out. Instead, they do this, which is not a strong move. They need to block, but they should be blocking this later. You're now continuing your monastery, and it's a good way to continue it. You're right, it's not the time to finish a monastery with another monastery, just because there's so many road tiles remaining that you just got to get that meeple back and get going. You do finish your monastery. They now continue blocking. You should probably go over here and prevent them from blocking. It's a question of how to do that. Yeah, I guess this is fine, even though there's still many straight lines remaining. They now get a quick point tile. You score 3 quick points as well. So far, natural moves. Oh, hi, Daniel. So you're saying that for you, that kind of huge cities aren't really worth it to complete. Chances to close it are slim. Better to use caps to score several 4-point cities. Ah, you were talking about this move. So I think this move, well, I think it's not a bad move, because I think was not so much about completing the city. It's more about like covering it up from invasion. And also creating a threat of completing it. Because I think the beauty about it, and well, there is a game from the European Championship which I think was quite interesting. It was from the quarterfinals of the 2021 European Championship between the Play with Queen of someone you know and a Catalan player. I forgot who exactly, but here Vladimir used like used city caps to create a 25% chance of completing the city. But the goal for that wasn't the city, it was just the threat, to make sure that your opponent keeps chasing it, keeps blocking it. And keeping your options open with the city, it's a nice idea. So we did get a small concession out of it. Our opponent was forced to spend a tile, which they needed to spend to free up their own meeple. And as a result, this square here stays for some time, because it's still vulnerable. Oh, you say the curve over here was unambitious, better leave space for the second monastery. If this is one of the cases where I have to disagree. So first of all, because there's so many road tiles, like you will get that tile eventually, and you will just get your meeple back. And it's not that important to create a second monastery spot for a couple of reasons. First of all, that second monastery spot is not that juicy. As soon as you get those 6 points, your opponent grabs this fat tile and blocks the square, because 4 of the starting cities are out. Second, well, it's going to be quite a wait because there's 3 monastery tiles remaining, and it's just important to get your stuff sooner, in this position particularly, just to not stay with one meeple for too long. But there is another reason, is like you should be really thinking that there are not 3 but 2 monastery tiles remaining, because you should be playing assuming that your opponent wins this coin flip. Because if they lose this coin flip, you probably win anyway, like with your ruin, with your field, with your long-term meeple majority. So you should be playing assuming that you lose the coin flip for this monastery. And finally, it's not that important to create a monastery spot next to your monastery in this position, because there is another potential monastery, beautiful monastery spot over here, because it also like covers up your meeple nicely. It's just fantastic. I'm not sure, I don't remember, maybe by the time when this was happening, the monastery spot was not quite there, but the idea of finishing your monastery with another monastery is more important in positions where there aren't other monastery spots available. They score 4 points. We score 2 points at the bottom, as we should, making their square next to the monastery even more vulnerable. They go here, which is a bit unfortunate, but here I think. Yeah, exactly. That's a monastery spot. And we could totally meeple this, actually. You decide not to, which is fair. Because you will be losing some value from... Well, actually, you won't be losing much value. You will be losing value from crossroads, right? Yeah, only from one crossroads and from this monastery tile. No, actually, only from one crossroads. Anything else you'll be able to use either to continue your city or this. So you don't really need that meeple. It is, of course, a bit of a gamble in the sense that these three tiles will be quite a weight. And if your opponent grabs a triangle and goes here, then your meeple is trapped, and the only way for you to get a meeple back is just one of these three tiles. Yeah, I guess I can see it makes sense that you don't want to have your monastery trapped. Yeah, you continue sort of kind of blocking. Your opponents miraculously freeze up. Almost freeze up, I should say. They decided to do this, but I'm not sure if that's the best move. I think they should just let this meeple die. I think they should just free up their other meeples. Just because here, for example, you can go here and block them. Or you can start a new city here. That's actually also pretty cool. But no, maybe new city here is not that great. I think the block is better because they're threatening to get a straight line and do this. Which also makes me think that I rather like their move, actually. You have very, very few blocking tiles, and it's a good move. It's a good move. Given how many straight lines are remaining, they can free up their two meeples quite easily. You start building a city, but I think a block was better, just as I discussed, because they continue. What are you going to do? I guess you're going to attack their city, which makes sense. They have only one tile. Now, of course, they are quite happy to get their stuff back, and you get the only tile in the deck, that blocks your opponent. And now they have only one tile that gets them back. So, again, I mean, you do end up with a city, but you weren't the favorite to get out of this situation alive. They were actually the favorite to finish this stuff. So I think a block was much, much better than starting this new city. They do go over here, they start blocking you. You win the coin flip, which also gives you 2 points and expands your field and protects your city meeple. They protect your city. It looks like they're attacking your city, but they're only really taking away one tile away from you. So I'm not sure if that was the best move from your opponent, but they're in a tough position. It's very hard to recommend something for them. You continue blocking. They immediately get the city and they drop a farmer. It's a fan. How do they not drop a farm? Why? I know they're 14 points ahead, but it's not enough for them because you have the ruin and you have the field. And it's a perfect place to be doing stuff like this because there's still a curve and there are some like back-to-back connections through a city cap and something else. Moreover, they can do it with tempo because like if they get a city cap, then they're like threatening this stuff. I don't know why they would not do that. You continue your top ruin and eliminate a field connection. They get 4 points, which makes sense. You can probably also continue your ruin. Yeah, that makes sense. They get their meeple back, which is very, very nice for them. So they do win a coin flip too. And suddenly your position is not looking like that great. Well, let's see. We're down 35. We have 6 versus 6. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we're down only 20, and we have the field. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So actually we're up 1 point, but your opponent has a bajillion meeples. But because it's close to the game, to the end of the game, they can't really take advantage of these meeples. So I would say that you have an advantage in this position. You have some vulnerabilities because this field can be attacked, and your opponent should have dropped a farmer. That was inexcusable of them to not drop a farmer, I think. And you just have a bunch of high impact tiles. You have a city here which is blockable, but like not with every tile. So if you get this, then you just win. You have 2 tiles here that gives you 6 points extra and a meeple back. So your position is overall really good, but this game could go either player's way. And the only reason why your opponent was able to catch up is because they won this coin flip over here. You continue a ruin, which makes sense. An alternative move was going over here and eliminating a field connection with the idea that now your opponent cannot like drop a city cap on this square and connect. But I think a point also makes sense. Now here, your opponents, I think you're just playing somebody who's low rated. If they're counting tiles, I think many of you in the chat should see the move that red should be playing in this position. Red has to go over here and drop a farmer, and this move would be blocking your city. And then that's it. Like, red should win in this game. Because you are now +2, they go over here, they make sure that the city is not finishable, they drop a farmer in a field where there are 2 open city caps, they are at +2 plus extra meeples, and that's it. But instead, they go here, okay, and meeple a 1 point field, 1 point city, because they're not counting. So you should be very happy about that. They are now at -1 instead of +1. You meeple the field defensively, which probably makes sense. But then you're only, if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken. Actually, no, I now start rather liking this move, right? You are at +4. And you still have 2 tiles that give you like 7 points and a meeple back. Yeah. And they probably don't have enough time to catch up. And of course, this move should have been a farmer. Now they could have simply just gone over here, scored 7 points, but they no longer have this option. So they just take 4 points instead. So they already lost 5 points because of their imprecision. You can probably just get 1 ruin point. So you're at +5. On the other hand, actually I'm not sure about this, because it creates another field connection. Curved straight line. Actually, yeah, wait a second. Your opponent can go over here and now threaten like an unblockable 66% win. Yeah, so maybe don't do that next time. But I didn't see that at first, but it gives you 1 point, but it gives them like really a lot of winning ideas. I think here they can either do this, or if they don't notice, they can go over here and connect your fields, which would give them 8 points. And then they should still be winning, right? They should still be winning. Because what? You're at now +2. They will be at +6. You go here, you will be at like +7, I guess. Then they meet +6 point field. That's 5 points. And then you have nowhere else to make up these 5 points. So if they go here, they also guarantee themselves the win by a couple of points. But they don't do that. They make a 6-point move instead of an 8-point move. You should be super happy about that. There's not much that you can do. You're kind of flipping for the win. Because they're now +4. You go here. You do get it. They score a 4-point road. And you score 6 points for the field. Wait, which also, if I counted correctly, you should be losing by a couple of points. But maybe I miscounted a couple of points here and there. Oh yeah, I think I might have like forgotten a couple of your field points. Let's just see how much I earned. Okay, yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, so I counted correctly. I just forgot that you actually lost this game. So, yeah, you lost by 2 points, which is exactly what I thought. So, which means that... What could have we done differently? Well, a few things. I think, tactically, this block was quite important. Because as a result, like, your opponent got his meeples back anyway, and yeah. And you see what happened, your opponents actually made a lot of imprecisions and they won anyway. This move, I can understand for sure, but then you're hoping that you get one of the 2 city caps and you win only then. And only if your opponent doesn't connect the fields. So then you win only if your opponent makes a bunch of mistakes. So maybe instead of meepling this field, the better gamble perhaps was to go over here and meeple this field. And then hope that your opponent attacks the main field but just doesn't connect. I know, but it's pretty interesting. Like, I can't blame you for this move. Because obviously you want to protect your big field. But sometimes if you calculate that it's not quite just enough for you to win, then it sometimes makes sense to let your opponent attack the big field and just hope that they're not successful. Overall, in the very end game, I think there's not much we could have done. But I think a few opening imprecisions with that main field as a result that your opponent got this road. Then just like a few tactical things here and there would be probably the main takeaway. Other than that, I felt like you did what you had to do. You made a big ruin, which is great. You managed to expand your field, which is also very good. But at the end, it wasn't enough because your opponent did win a crucial coin flip over here. But to be fair, like, they should be, like, after you're starting your city, they should be completing their monastery most of the time, and possible with a farmer. So yeah, tough game. Hopefully you can extract something out of it. But if anybody else in the chat has any comments, do let me know. Yeah, the more I think about this, maybe the winning idea for you was to play like super defensively. Take this city piece and put it over here instead of investing another meeple. Then your opponent simply can't meeple this farm. Actually, that's so cool. Yeah, I think that's the idea. Because this square was already restricted to a curve, but if they draw a curve, then they no longer have the other a curve to connect because there was only one curve remaining. So I think this over here like was the ultimate winning idea. And then you have the other meeple to meeple this field before they meeple it, and then you win by a couple of points. Daniel is saying very unfortunate for IMD that Jules got the crossroads. Yeah, that's true, but you know, it at the same time it was very very fortunate that IMD got this tile that committed them to the crossroads in the first place. Also, like won the coin flip for the monastery. So I don't really think as Black we get to complain about the tiles here much. Like we did get a lot of good stuff. But yeah, sometimes, like even if you play, 80% of the game well, and you make like reasonable moves, it can sometimes be not enough. Like this meeple, yeah, I mean, not bad. It's decent. It's just probably the find was this. This was the key spatial idea. Well, yep. Again, hopefully it was instructive for some of you. We're going to wrap up. So we have an exciting weekend in Carcassonne going on. First of all, I've literally like half an hour before the stream finished editing episode 9 of Carcassonne Move of the Week. I'm excited about the episode. I'm going to release it very, very soon. Today, actually. Then tomorrow morning, I'm planning a Fantasy Carcassonne update. There's a lot of exciting developments there. I just want to wait for the lineups for tomorrow's game to be published to actually see how this affects our Fantasy Carcassonne game. And tomorrow, of course, the decisive events in the World Team Carcassonne Online Championships. We'll find out who becomes the world champion and who gets the bronze medal. I'm not streaming anything because I'm playing in the... Well, I guess it's not a big secret. Yeah, I am on the lineup. I've chose to put myself in the lineup. I'm playing against Spain tomorrow. I will be recording that and hopefully publishing this later. I also recorded my duel against the Chinese player with a screen name Dr. Taihan. My semi-final duel, I'll be publishing that hopefully too, if I decide that it is interesting enough. But that will be a few days after the championship in all likelihood. Yeah, as for streams, there will be possibly another game analysis stream. I need to check quite soon in July, like not in the end of July, closer to the beginning of July. Then the usual games reviewers and Azul reviewers. So this is the plan. Thank you for all of you who stuck around until the end. Meeple the like button if you learned something today. That's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you soon.